Home Street Bank is the sponsor of our podcast. They're our lender of choice, whether your banking needs are personal or business. Great people, great rates, tremendous service. That's homestreetbank.com.
So what if the product you sell is, less than sexy? We're going to talk to someone today who will tell you how to stand out even when your product blends in. Stick around.
Welcome to The Buyer's Mind, where we take a closer look deep inside your customer's decision-making mechanism to reverse engineer the perfect sales presentation. Now, please welcome your host, Jeff Shore.
Well, welcome everyone once again to The Buyer's Mind, a special episode of The Buyer's Mind, because one of the things that we love to do from time to time is bring on great salespeople. When I say great salespeople, I'm talking about people who have a proven track record. I don't want to bring anybody onto this show who is not stellar at what they do, who does not have a strong track record of sales. Let's learn from people who are doing it every day. And today we're going to hear from somebody who is selling a product that's a little less than shall we say, riveting. So joined as always by our show producer, Paul Murphy. Murph, tell me three things. Let's just do one at a time. Let's go back and forth. Well, you do three, I'll do three. I want you to think of three things that you think would be difficult to sell because they're just not that exciting or interesting. You go first. Let's see how this goes. Okay.
How about tongue depressors? Come on. How can you sell those things?
Yes. No. I'm totally with you. Tongue depressors. Yeah.
They're popsicle sticks.
Yeah. I'm going to go with basement painting services. So we're making stuff up, I'm going to go with basement paint. Who wants to paint their basement? All right. What do you got next?
My major in college, underwater basket weaving. I think baskets.
Love it. Okay. All right. And I'll go with replacement filters for your ice maker. And it's the type of thing that nobody really cares about. They just don't want to think about it. All right. Last one.
Paper clips.
That makes sense.
They're everywhere.
And I'm going to go, sure. I'm going to go with shredded wheat, simply because it's the most boring cereal ever invented. When we think about selling things that just don't have that cachet, it presents a different kind of challenge. And today, our guest today, our sales superstar today, sells a very, very interesting product. She sells boxes, cardboard boxes. All right. Now, if there was ever a product that was more commoditized than a cardboard box, I'm hard pressed to think what it is. So how does Molly do it? Well, you're going to hear it. And the bottom line is her boxes are not difference makers. She is the difference maker. Look, I don't care what you sell. As you listen to today's episode, I want to encourage you, think like Molly. How do you stand out? How do you become the difference maker? Now, this is an important discussion that we oftentimes do not have. Why you? What makes you so memorable? How can you be the one salesperson that the customer remembers at the end of the day? And I want to just challenge you as we're thinking about having Molly on the show here. I want you to just give you a little exercise. You can write this down now and then just give it some time to think about. Just complete the sentence. Well, I'm the salesperson who ... What do you do that separates you from everyone else? And don't say, well, I'm the salesperson who cares more. And that only works if everyone else admits that they don't really care. It has to be unique. There has to be something that you do that nobody else has laid claim to. I'm the salesperson who does what? And so I want you to listen to Molly. I want you to listen to her dedication. I want you to listen to her as the difference maker. Because sometimes when I say I'm the salesperson who does, what is that? It doesn't necessarily mean, well, I'm the salesperson who can get you a hold of Hamilton tickets on Broadway. No, sometimes I'm the salesperson who calls 10 times when everybody else only calls once. That's a difference maker. What is it for you? How do you stand out? I think you're going to love our conversation today with Molly Jacobs. Well, from time to time, what we love to do is, we love to talk to, marketers and behavioral economists and psychologists and all of those people that can add so much value to this podcast. But from time to time, we want to make sure we're keeping it real, as the kids say. Kids probably don't say that anymore, but anyway, we want to make sure that we're staying connected with people who are on the front line, and we do this from time to time where we'll bring somebody in who is a practitioner, and we've got a good one today. Please welcome to the Buyer's Mind, Molly Jacobs. Molly, how are you?
Jeff, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
We'll have some fun. All right. So now we've got everybody wondering, what does she sell? Does she sell missiles to the Defense Department? Does she sell a vaccine for a little known disease somewhere? Maybe she sells catering services to Hollywood elites. What does Molly Jacobs sell?
I sell boxes.
Okay, so you sell boxes. You sell cardboard boxes to people who ship things for a living, right? Is that your life?
That is what I live and breathe. Yes.
You're the self-proclaimed box lady. I just love that. And we're going to talk today about what do you do to try to stand out. And I think it's appropriate that when we talk about standing out, that we're going to talk about standing out with a product that is difficult to stand out. It's one thing if you've got a one-of-a-kind, totally unique item, but what if you do that? If you're selling something that other people see as a commodity, how does that happen? So, Molly, tell us a little bit about yours, because I would not have you on this podcast except that you are really, really good at what it is that you do. You're very successful. Give us a little bit of your background. You didn't always sell boxes. What did you used to sell?
I started my sales career in college, and I started with a product called Cutco Cutlery. So before I was the box lady, I was actually the knife lady. So I sold knives for about 4 years in people's homes and asking for referrals and growing my book of business that way. And then after that, I started switching more to B2B. I would work with real estate agents and more in that demographic. So that way they would be able to buy in bulk and grow my business that way. Mm-hmm. So that was a really good fit. And when I was approached to, sell boxes on LinkedIn, I had the same thought that, most people hear when you hear that idea. I wasn't totally sold on it. But I did some research and I fell into it, and it's been a great fit. It is a commoditized product, but in a sense, it's actually easier to sell something so commoditized than it would be to sell a luxury high-end product that someone doesn't need. So I really enjoy it.
Okay, we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but just to make sure we're setting the table, you were actually doing in-home presentations of how your cutlery works, channeling your inner Uncle Rico.
Yes.
Love it.
And it was a great sales platform. They taught us a lot about the buying process and asking for referrals and generating leads. And, there was some naivety to it because I didn't realize that it was weird to ask for referrals. So I just got so used to it that it's a normal part of my business now.
That's interesting. So you carried that forward because you just had to. I would think that the hardest part for an in-home presentation is just figuring out how to get your foot in the door in the first place. So if you didn't ask for a referral, if you didn't get that referral, it meant probably 100 more cold calls before you're going to get another appointment.
Exactly. About working smarter and tying people into your mission, your goal, and that was it was a great stepping stone for me.
Did you put yourself into the category of saying, at this point, I'm too stupid to know what I can't do? I mean, if you've been a seasoned pro for a little while, you're going to look at things like in-home presentations and you're going to go, no, I don't want to do that, because you probably have too much history. Were you just looking and saying, really, just say this right here? Do that? Oh, okay, I'll do that. Was it that simple?
Yeah, I almost didn't know. I committed to doing. I think part of it was that I had just gotten home from studying abroad and I was open-minded and I needed a way to pay for school. And so, I knew I wasn't going to sell knives for my whole life, but while I was doing it, I just jumped right in and committed, and it was great.
So you made the jump into selling boxes. And you said something intriguing just a moment ago. You said in some ways selling boxes is easier. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure out, okay, where is she going with this? Because when we think about selling something easier, most salespeople tend to look at it and they say, here's my product. It's fantastic. It does this. It does that. You're going to look at it and go, it's a box. You can open it. You can tape it shut. You could probably reuse it. How cool is that? Then I'm out. Then I'm out of features at that point. So how is it easier selling boxes than something that is a feature-laden product?
Yeah, great question. When I think about all the products I could sell, having a commoditized product like a box, it's something people have to buy for their business. Once they use it, they have to buy it again. And, if you're part of that integral part of their supply chain, they're going to keep reordering. And so that's what really attracted me to the business is it's sustainable, it's repeatable. And although there's many competitors in our industry, if you're someone who is able to show value, then really it's more about you than the product. So I've learned how to differentiate myself a little bit.
How?
I knew you were going to ask that. So lots of ways. I think the motivation for customers to change suppliers is really tough. And that's, what I wanted to talk about today is just the fear of change and uncertainty and how we can switch buyers to working with us. Different ways we differentiate ourselves. People are very self-serving. So, if you're doing a good job, what's going to make their life easier? What's going to make them look good? It's very emotionally driven.
Because you're looking at it and you're saying that people have a lot of fear of change. And I get that. I don't think most people who have to ship things in their business are sitting around saying, of all the problems that I have in my life right now, way up on the list is whether I'm getting the most out of my box provider. I'm guessing that's not something that they're spending a lot of time thinking about.
Most likely not. So, since it's something that's not even on their radar, I think a lot of the times they don't even know that they have a problem. A lot of times, it's my job to come in and see how we can improve their current supply chain and processes and things like that. But you're right. A lot of people don't want to listen if they don't think it's something that they need and it's even on their radar.
One way that you can look at this, that you described this to me earlier, and I want to expand on this just a little bit. When I met my wife, I was not, quote, in the market. Okay, I was not thinking about getting married and settling down and all of that stuff. But what happened? At first, she was just another female in my life, and over time, started to look at it and go, okay, there's something special here that caused me to want to make a change for my status. You liken this to dating to some extent.
Absolutely, the sales process and prospecting is very similar to dating. Lots of correlations there. I'm in the business of taking business away from other clients. I know that my customers, whether they're in manufacturing or e-commerce or any industry that uses a box, that they already have a supplier because they have to ship things. So I'm in the business of showing why I'm better, why my company and offerings are a better service than with their current supplier. So, after my initial prospecting call, I'll follow up. It's like texting after the first date, had a great time. Can't wait to see you again. Mm-hmm. So I follow up with them that day, reaching out to them and keeping them aware of like what's going on in the market and industry trends and price increases, all of those things, trying to anticipate what their needs might be. So that way, when it does come time to order, they know who to call.
What do you do when somebody says, hey, just, thanks for this great information. That's really helpful. But just, we already have a box provider.
Compliment them. Mm-hmm. Hey, absolutely. Great. I'm glad to hear it. Oftentimes I'll ask for feedback. I've been in this industry a couple of years. What's something that you really like? What are they doing well for you? What could they be doing better? And a lot of times just having a candid, open conversation, they'll be transparent, let you know where they're happy. And sometimes they might convince themselves where there's a gap in that. They might find, as they're talking to you, oh, this could actually be better. My turn times, my billing. And a lot of times when they are in a contract or somewhere like that, I'll actually recommend just being a backup supplier. It's not good to put all your eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. And I'll just keep that relationship open again, like the dating. Well, hey, I'm here. So oftentimes someone might drop the ball, and they know who to reach out to. So I'm not super aggressive when it comes to that, but I do let them know that I'm happy to be a backup.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. When you look at dating and when you look at sales, let's face it, part of being effective in the dating world is that you kind of got to be likable. How important is likability to you as you think it through on the sales side and the idea of attracting new business, especially if, as you said, you're in the business of taking business away from other companies? How important is just flat likability?
It's almost at the top.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be doing business with people, you have to like, know, and trust them. You build that credibility. And it's a long-term game. I consider myself to be a connector and a relationship builder. So in the forefront, before I even talk sales, this is sales 101, you have to build rapport and get to know someone, find some common interests and commonalities. So you can get to that point where you can choose your customers. You're excited to work with the people that you talk to on a daily basis. And just becoming the type of person that they would want to do business with. It's not just a transaction. It's for me, it's a long-term relationship that I'm trying to build with these people. So.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it from that perspective, the long-term nature of it, because persistence then has to be a big part of what it is that you do. And I think we've all seen it, right? Where salespeople will make, one call, maybe to a form email, and then they blow off that prospect and say, well, they're just not interested. I have a feeling you're going to tell us that is not your MO.
Yeah, I mean, most salespeople should know. I look at it almost kind of like a challenge, like a test. If a customer is not taking my initial meeting requests or emails or things like that, I look at it as a challenge. We know that sales are mostly made depending on the business, between 5 and 8 touches. So I wouldn't even think about giving up until, I've heard a hard no. Molly, stop coming here. Stop calling me, which most people don't say. It's part of the process. And what's exciting about that is I know once I've earned that trust and I've worked hard to get them, it's going to be that much more difficult for a competitor to come in and do the same thing. So I actually really like this. I really like those type of buyers. They turn out to be the best ones because they are used to subpar salespeople. So they do test you a little bit. I think it's fun.
Are there times though when you look at and you go, oh man, this is contact number 6, and I've never gotten anywhere, that there was a little spark back there in contact number 1, but nothing's happened since. And do I really want to make this contact? Do you look at it, or do you look at it instead and go, okay, we're at number 6. We got to be getting close now.
Yeah, I get excited about that. I just know that we're getting closer. With that said, sometimes, and maybe other people listening can relate, you wonder what to talk about. You don't want to just say, hey, just following up. So I always try to find a way to add value in every type of follow-up, whether it's, like I said, a price increase letter or something I found on a blog that might be relevant to their business. Or I find, and this is the work of it, it's not just a blind email. You have to put some tailored thought into it. And I think that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you don't deal with a lot of that rejection fear that other salespeople sometimes deal with.
Oh, it's not that I don't feel it. Picking up a phone and calling someone, and I still have those same emotions. I think that's what. From what I've read and trying to condition myself, it's just doing it anyways, feeling the fear and doing it anyways. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets you the results. It's not that, I'm superhuman. I still feel those same emotions, but I don't let that debilitate my taking action.
Is part of this come from the fact that you have a lesser tendency to take rejection personally? Because that's one of my concerns is when I talk to sales professionals who confuse the idea that a customer is rejecting a concept. They're not rejecting an individual, but too many salespeople, I think, take it too personally when it was not meant to be a personal affront.
Absolutely. One of my favorite books, it's really simple, short read. I'm sure you've read it. It's the 4 Agreements. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And one of the agreements on there is don't take things personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly remind myself that, whether someone's not answering their phone or they may be, abrupt or short with you, there could be so many other variables that it's not about me. So that helps take the personal, it doesn't hurt my feelings if someone doesn't get back to me. It's my job to follow up, and it's, there's a million other things on their plate. So not taking things personally, I do remind myself of that a lot. It's a great book. So
when you think about your follow-up sequence, if you know there's going to be multiple touches, and there are, how do you plan for that? How do you make sure? Because I think one of the mistakes that salespeople sometimes make is that they're essentially rewriting their tactics with every single touch point. And then it's like, well, what am I going to say and what am I going to do? And I prefer to look at this as just a long story. There's a narrative that's going on over a long period of time. And all you're doing here is writing another brief chapter of that story. So how do you do it? How do you approach that to make sure that one call or contact or touch is connected both to the last one and to the next one?
My sales process, I think the reason that I don't lose sleep at night is because I track things. I have a defined sales process, and it really helps me know where I'm at with each customer. But I like constant communication. So, after, your first date, you text them, date as in meeting,
Yep.
follow up. A lot of times I'll ask them, I'll try to go out to lunch with them or do a site tour or invite them to our tour, just taking it to the next level, trying to add more value in every interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I think just going back to the relationships and getting to know people on a personal level, remembering those little things. They mention their niece's birthday or an event that they have coming up or a trade show, just kind of pulling things back that they had mentioned, a couple meetings before, and that makes them think, oh, wow, they really care. They're getting to know me. And just over that lifespan of the customer, say it takes a couple months to close that deal. By the time I'm their main supplier and I'm seeing them on a regular basis, we have that relationship in place. So I try not to let it go too long between touches. I talk to a lot of my customers weekly, so I keep that open communication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have routines? Are you a routine person for the way that you schedule your time, schedule your day, schedule your week, and make sure that you're looking at it and saying, well, let's see, I could make a phone call here, but boy, LinkedIn or Facebook sure sounds like much more fun.
Oh, yes. So my week really starts on Sunday nights, and I like to know what I'm getting into for the week. But on a daily basis, I think it's really important to protect our time. A lot of times, even as we're speaking, my inbox is getting emails, and as salespeople, we're constantly responding to other people's requests. And instead of being busy, or we're busy instead of being productive. Mm-hmm. And so something that I've learned, it's not my own, but I block out time for the first 2 hours in the morning. So from 7 to 9, that is my time to follow up. And then in the evenings, I make my calls normally around 4 o'clock, between 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. And that is when I get to do what I need to do. And then the rest of the day is for my sales calls, follow-ups, requests, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Love it. Love it. What advice would you give to somebody who is just getting started in sales? They've never sold anything, but it's their first job. What advice would you give?
My advice to a new salesperson would to be excited and actually truly care about your customers, mm-hmm. and think that, it's a long-term game, and you have to truly care about what they get out of it, not what you get out of it. Because if you're only caring about yourself, that's going to come through. When you have their best interest in mind, I really think that's the biggest differentiator. Mm-hmm. They can tell that.
You just have this winner's mindset. You just have this, it's almost like you need to win. Did I describe that right?
Yeah, I'm extremely competitive. I grew up with 3 brothers, and I'm the only girl. So naturally I have a need to win, as long as it's a win-win for me and the customer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that we can both feel good about.
I love it. I love it. Hey, before we let you go, we always do this, so we're going to put you on the hot seat. Ready? Some rapid fire questions, rapid fire answers. I'm going to put you on the spot. You ready?
Ready.
All right. Your very first job was what?
YMCA.
Okay. When you were 10, you thought you would be?
Veterinarian.
The most beautiful place you've ever stood?
On top of Half Dome in Yosemite.
Any book that you've read that made a profound impact on your life?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
A movie you've seen multiple times, but you just can't help it. You have to watch when it comes on.
Forrest Gump.
And your first celebrity crush?
Oh, Josh Hartnett.
You're off the hot seat.
I don't know where that one came from.
It's all right. We're going with our gut here. There are no right or wrongs. You're off the hot seat. Molly, I have to tell you, it's delightful because, we talk to so many people here who are theorists in making it easier for us to understand how to be great at what it is that we do. But to talk to a practitioner who does this day after day after day, it's incredibly inspiring. It really, really is. And my hat's off to you. I love your energy. I love your approach. I love the fact that you don't just simply talk about it. You walk the walk. And again, on behalf of all of us in the sales world, hats off to you. You're the best.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I really enjoyed doing this, and I like listening to your other podcasts too. You have a lot of knowledge and great speakers, so I'm happy to be part of it.
Well, Murph, we always love talking to people who do this on the front lines. And boy, not only does she do it, but you could just tell she's great at it, can't you?
When somebody has that energy, that spark, you just feel it.
Yeah. But you almost get the sense that she's sort of sneaky good. In this, at first you're like, okay, here's a salesperson wants to sell me boxes. But then over time, well, remember we had Scott McCain on the podcast, and we were talking about the Steve Martin idea, be so good that they can't ignore you. I kind of get the sense that that's how Molly goes about doing her thing.
I think you're absolutely right. She started with Cutco, which has got to be so hard to do those in-home demonstrations. I've had one, and I bought Cutco knives, but nonetheless, it was very, very difficult and awkward for that salesperson in my home.
Yes. Yeah. There's no question about it. And I think that's the type of job where, and by the way, she did that for 4 years. That's the type of job where the burnout rate is so high, you basically know and are in and out within a month if you're not going to make it. And she did it for 4 years, which tells you that she had the goods even back when she was selling knives. I also just love the idea of she made it sound interesting. Right? She's not naive about this. She's selling boxes. It's a product that could easily be seen as a true commodity. But she said, what did she say? She said, in some ways, selling boxes is easier because it's more about you than it is about the product. That buyers they have a fear of change. They're very self-serving. And so I got to ask the question, how can I make their life easier? And I just think that this is such a tremendous way to be able to go about how you plan your own sales strategy. If you look at it from that perspective of how do I make this person's life easier? And it doesn't matter what you're selling. When you start with that mindset, when you start with the idea, how do I make this person's life easier? Everything changes. Everything changes. And so I want to just encourage you to spend a little time today asking the question, what do I do to make my customer's life easier? How do I alleviate those frustrations that they may not even fully understand that they have? This is so critical. If you're looking for a way to stand apart, you really have to do it by looking at it and saying how to make their life easier. And then finally, just this idea that persistence is just everything. Other salespeople are going to give up. They're going to say, well, the person isn't really showing me all the buying signals and that customer isn't really staying with me. And I would just challenge you right now to listen to what Molly had to say about that. That is the sound of opportunity. If you're going to sit around and you're going to wait for other customers around you to be able to look at it and say, please, 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 will you come sell me something? It's going to be a long and boring day. if we look at it and recognize that my persistence separates me from the crowd, it is those multiple touches and the constant adding of value that separates me from everybody else. All those other salespeople are going to fade into the distance because they've simply lost interest and moved on to the next person that they're going to talk to. But it is that persistence that makes all the difference. And then you're going to get the repeat customer, you're going to get the referral, you're going to have that great relationship, you're going to enjoy your life so much more. And I just want to challenge you right now and just ask you the question, how quickly are you giving up? How quickly are you stepping aside? How quickly are you just kicking that prospect into your CRM and letting your systems carry it from there? But if you stay with them, if you can prove that you are the one who is more committed, who is more serving, who will be there in the long run, that is when you get their attention. That is when you get the business. And ultimately, that is when you change their world.